Folks, if you're standing in the back, you don't have to, but just know that there's spots in the front. If you want to, squeeze in, you're more than welcome to squeeze. We just need to put the mic over here for the applicant. Okay, thank you, Lenny. We have our mic, we have board members, we have public, and we're ready to rock and roll. Everybody ready? Keep thumbs up? All right. Ready? Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Town of Mount Pleasant Planning Board meeting, regularly scheduled for June 6, 2024, 7:30 p.m. We have a couple items to go through. We have business items. Those are items we've reviewed in the past, and the consultant has drafted a resolution, and we're going to make decisions on those. Those are probably not what you're here for tonight. Then we have a new public hearing, which I think many of you are here for tonight. That's for the Toll Brothers application, followed by others that are not ready for a public hearing, but they're trying to get to a public hearing. And everybody hearing me tonight? All right. So start though. I comment about today, June 6th. And June 6th, importance. June 6, 1944 is an important day to remember. In D-Day, 9,000 forces died from the UK, Canada, and the US. And you think about the bravery that men and women had at that time to embark on a journey that they had no idea if they would make it back alive or dead. So I know we have an important agenda here tonight, but I'm asking everybody here tonight, just when you go home, to think about the bravery that these men and women took to fight for our country and for our freedom throughout the world every single day that we endure and enjoy, that freedom. So, okay, with that being said, first up, business items. Adoption of a resolution of approval for steep slopes application SS 24-3, vacant parcel on Arnold Place, Thornwood R40 zoning district, construction of a new single-family dwelling. Development includes site excavation, regrading, retaining walls, driveway, and stormwater. 106.20-1-10 Arnold Place Realty LLC, care of Anthony D'Agostino. So this was an application that we have reviewed quite a bit over the last several months. We've had meetings about it, we've had conversations about it, we've seen tons of emails and documentation about it, and now we're at the point where the applicant has provided us enough information that we've directed the applicant at the last meeting to draft a resolution. We've reviewed the resolution, and now the board needs to make a decision or make comments on that resolution tonight. So I'm going to pause for a moment and ask if any board members have any comments or questions on the resolution or on the application from the application for Arnold Place.
I have a question / comment. Due to the close proximity of the rock to the adjacent homes on Arnold Place cul-de-sac, I'd like to see the resolution include that the applicant perform a pre-construction survey of the adjacent homes and also perform seismic monitoring of these houses during the course of the rock removal operation.
Okay, I see the applicant back here. Do you want to join us?
Sure. Good evening.
Good evening.
And Walter, you may want to direct that comment directly to the applicant.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thanks. So I direct that comment to you.
Okay. I guess my response is if that's what we need to do, I'm sure we can do that. We've provided a significant amount of surveys, topographical, surveys and everything, as far as the town is concerned. From the email that I saw from Dave today, it looks like we've addressed all of the issues and concerns that the town has. If the seismic thing is an issue, it's something that I could look into, but I didn't believe that was something that the town was going to require after the last meeting that we had here.
Well, it's a comment now for you to address.
If it's something that I need to do in order to get this to move on, it's something that we will take care of.
I agree with Walter. Reading Dave's comments today, he had mentioned that in his memo.
Yep.
And I agree, just for the safety and peace of mind for the residents. That was a major concern in
Yep.
our last meeting, and
Yeah, it's not an issue. The way that I read the comment was that, you know, that Dave made today was that all of these issues could actually be taken care of during the building stage with the building department and the engineering department while we go through the stormwater process and the actual building process was basically the first paragraph that Dave had in there, so. You know, I'm not against doing the seismic thing. It's something if Dave wants to do and address during the building application or building portion of it, with something that we can definitely take care of.
Okay, so we can talk about that in a moment, but let's see if there's any other questions or comments from board members. Any other questions or comments from board members?
I just wanted to say that this was a site that was approved and sold by the city, by the town 50 years ago.
Correct.
Probably before there was environmental regulations and a lot of technical requirements. And essentially, it's a house in a hole, and any house that gets built there is going to have to go through the rocks, whether it's a small house or a good-sized house, and you're raising up the grade so that it's a livable
And that was
lot.
also addressed during the original meeting when the lot was approved and the house was approved, that the rock outcropping was gonna have to be removed.
Unavoidable. It's
Yep.
unavoidable.
It was in
And
the original notes of the first, you know, the meeting when it was approved, so.
I agree with Walter that those extra conditions, the survey that we're talking about is kind of an inspection of the
Yep.
foundations of the, it's not like a
Yeah, understood.
property survey.
Yep.
We have a resolution that includes a lot of conditions that will protect the neighbors
Okay.
and, again, remind you to hasten the construction
Yep.
so that limits the impact to the neighbors.
Understood.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from board members? So Pat, how do we address these additional comments?
So by agreement, we can add that condition. As you know, in the resolution now, there's a condition that relates to those issues regarding blasting, if blasting were necessary. So we'll simply add that with respect to the chipping operation that the applicant will undertake.
Okay, so we can do that.
And has the applicant seen the resolution and the
Don't know.
conditions?
I mean, I have the email from Dave. Is that what you're
No.
talking about?
No, the actual resolution that includes all the conditions of approval.
I have not.
It's what we've been discussing.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, no surprises.
So we'll get that too. We'll make those amendments, and then we'll get you the updated resolution, and then we can make an action tonight on
Yeah,
it.
you can vote on it subject to that modification.
Right. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a decision on the resolution subject to the items that were brought up tonight, and there was a few items from Walter and from Eileen. Any other questions or comments from board members before I proceed? Okay. So subject to those two items that were brought up by Walter and Eileen, what do we want to do with this resolution that came before us tonight? Do we want to take an action to approve it with the condition to adopt those additional items, or do we not want to do that?
I'll make a motion that we approve the steep slopes resolution with the conditions mentioned by Walter.
And Eileen.
A second.
And Eileen, right?
Yes.
Okay, motion from Joan, second from Jade. Walter,
Aye.
Jane,
aye.
Joan,
Aye.
Eileen,
Aye.
JD,
Aye.
and an aye for me. You're good to go. Folks, my board members, just remember tonight, there's a packed room tonight, so just remember to speak into your mics, and I'm going to ask the applicant, whichever applicant comes up tonight, to use the mic. We have a lot of people here tonight. I want to make sure, because we're here for the public, and the public is here to hear. So if they can't hear, I would be remiss in not reminding people to speak into the mics and to speak into the mic when the applicant comes up. Okay, next up on the agenda, Kensico Preserve. This is a little bit different than what we're going to talk about later today. This is a little bit different. Kensico Preserve, Legion of Christ Incorporated, 24th 90-day extension request for previously approved 73-lot cluster subdivision plus 2 lots, Kensico Preserve, formerly known as Baker Residential. This is not about the larger application that's before us tonight. Pat, can you just help me explain this to
So
the public?
this is the continued extension of the prior approval of the Baker residential subdivision. That's the predecessor to the Toll Brothers application. That was approved by your board a number of
Right,
years
so
ago.
this is not the application that everybody's here for tonight, which is the big application. This is the previous application that was Baker, which was already approved, and he's come before us 24 times to extend it. And now we are here to possibly extend it again. And then the conversation that we're going to have later on for the 55-plus community is a different conversation, which is going to be taking over that property and therefore not negating the reason for having that 90-day extension. So, any questions or comments from board members on this 24th 90-day extension for previously approved 73-lot cluster subdivision on Kensico Preserve? With that being said, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the 90-day extension.
Motion from Jane,
Second.
second from Joan. Walter,
Aye.
Jane,
Aye.
Joan,
Aye.
Eileen,
Aye.
JD,
Aye.
and an aye for me. Okay. Next business item come up, and these are business items, folks, is the request for a second one-year extension of the resolution of approval for site plan 22-02 EF Academy 582-590 Columbus Avenue, Thornwood, development of Phase 2, including 10 additional faculty dwelling units. And for those people here tonight, this was an application, and it was an approved application where they were going to build a few additional housing units, 10 specifically, and they are looking for an extension of that resolution.
That's correct.
So any questions or comments from board members?
I'll make a motion, we approve the one-year extension.
We have a motion from Joan,
Second.
second from Eileen. Walter,
Aye.
Jane,
Aye.
Joan,
Aye.
Eileen,
Aye.
JD,
Aye.
and an aye from me. Okay, we got through all those business items. Now we are here for the public hearing. So what does a public hearing mean? That is a very formal process. That's where the applicant has prepared an application previously. He's brought it to this board many times before and to the various boards of the town. And now we feel it's ready for the town to at least hear the application. That does not mean we approve or disapprove the application. It means we feel it's ready for the public to hear and comment on. So what that also means is we want to hear from you. I do not live all throughout the town. I live in one part of town like everybody. So you're going to provide information to me and to the board and to the applicant about what your perspective is and what you're seeing and what you think is something that the applicant and the board should consider. So I'm going to ask everybody to limit your talk to about 5 minutes. And I'm going to time everybody only because I'm seeing a lot of people here tonight. And folks, there is seating. You can squeeze your way in if you need to. I'm glad it's a packed house because that's what we're here for. I'm going to ask people to raise their hands, and I'm going to ask people I want to give you guys a number. And when you have a number, you can speak. And you can speak for up to 5 minutes. Try to make it less because I want to make sure everybody's heard. If you're hearing things that were already said multiple times over, it doesn't really have much of an impact, to be honest. It just try and keep it focused. And then what I'm going to ask the applicant to do is sharpen their pencils and have a good piece of paper and take notes, because I'm going to ask them to come back with some responses, not tonight, but at a future time. So with that being said, let's have a raising of hands. Who would like to speak on this particular application on Kensico Preserve, Toll Brothers, 162 age restricted units? And hold that thought 1 second. Put your hands down 1 second. I'm going to do one quick thing. We have to do a procedural item. We have to waive the reading of the public notice.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
Motion from Joan.
Second.
Second from Jane. Walter.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Joan.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
JD. Aye. And aye for me. So it's like an exercise class. You guys put your arms up here, all right? All right. It's like chair yoga.
Hands up.
Hands up. All right. So now, and hands up. If you want to speak, you'll get a number. If you have a number, you can speak. If you don't have a number, you can't speak. And I'm going to try to put order to it. I want to hear from everybody, but I'm going to ask everybody to speak respectfully and calmly, and we'll get through this together, okay? So I have a number 1 right there, the gentleman in white. I see a number 2 there. I see number 3, the man in blue. I see the man in the back with the beard. Number 3, yes, right there. Number 4 in the back. Number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. Number 8, the man in the blue. Yep, that's your number 8. Yep, that's you. Yep. Number 9, the man in the green. Number 9. Yeah, you're number 9. And the people in the back, you're just as important as everybody else. Number 10, number 11. In the way back, can you see me? And number 12, the man in the, I guess, purplish shirt. And number 12. We do have 2 folding chairs here, and number 13. And number 13. We do have 2 folding chairs. If anybody in the back wants to take those folding chairs and
Steve Perry wants to-
oh, Steve, I am so sorry. Thank you, number 14. There's 2 folding chairs. If anybody wants to grab those chairs, you're more than welcome to grab them and sit in the back. But I'm sorry, you can try to squeeze in, but we'll do the best we can. There's 3 chairs, actually. If anybody in the back wants to take them. Anybody need the folding chairs in the back? Yes, no? All right.
Thanks anyway.
We're doing our best here. We want to make sure everybody's comfortable. All right. So again, 5 minutes. Just trying to be concise if you can, because we want to make sure everybody is heard. Everybody is heard, but we just ask people not to go past 5 minutes if we can. All right. With that being said, can we have speaker? Yes.
The applicant.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I was all prepared for the public. All right. Hold that thought. I'm sorry, the applicant. I'm sorry. I forgot all about you tonight.
The elephant in the room.
The big piece of the puzzle I forgot all about.
Although I'm getting the hint that we should go fairly quickly to get to the public, since
Yes,
that's clearly
yes.
what you all want here tonight.
But if you can speak to the public tonight, because we're here for the public.
Turn around, face this way tonight?
Yes, if you can. Thank you.
All right, so good evening, first of all, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff. My name is Brad Schwartz. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz in White Plains, and we represent Toll Brothers, the applicant. I'm joined tonight by Kevin Moses from Toll Brothers, as well as Keith Diorio, and James Karras from JMC Engineering, the project engineers for this proposal. So this is a proposal for 162 age-restricted units on a site that was previously approved for what was known as the Baker Project. You heard that referred to a little bit earlier on the prior matter on the agenda. That Baker Project, previously studied under SEQR, found not to result in any adverse environmental impacts, and was approved by the planning board for 116 fee simple subdivision lots, so 116 homes. Toll Brothers' application is 162 units, so more homes, but it's a different house product. They're townhomes. So we have studied the environmental impacts of this proposal in comparison to Baker, and what we have found was that there would be less disturbance, fewer environmental impacts. The planning board has adopted a negative declaration under SEQR for this proposal, because again, we study the incremental difference between what was already approved under Baker and what's being proposed by Toll Brothers. So in that context, we have studied the adverse impacts, traffic, stormwater, utilities, visual landscaping, and it is our belief that this is a better project than what was already previously studied and approved under Baker. And I'm going to turn to Kevin to kind of walk the public and the board through the details of the proposal.
Thank you, Brad, and good evening, members of the board. Good evening, members of the Mount Pleasant community. It's great to see all of you here tonight. As Brad had mentioned, we have 162 age-restricted, 3-bedroom townhomes proposed in this project. It is what we call an active adult community. Part of the reason we went this direction was that it meets a critical housing need in the town, and that is for senior housings and a diversity of housing types. There's not much townhome product in town, so we are hoping to bring that to the community. As Brad had mentioned, this is different than a single-family home layout. It's what you would call a cluster townhome layout, and what that does, it reduces the overall impact of the project, not only in area, but environmental impact, which is something that is important to us as it is to the town. Because it is an age-restricted community, there will be 0 school children. Let me repeat, 0 school children generated by this project. And as a consequence, it creates a very lucrative net tax surplus on an annual basis for the community. That's $2.28, almost $2.3 million a year that will be generated by this community. 166 of that going to the town, and $1.95 million going to the school district. Additionally, the community, there will be a host of amenities, a clubhouse, there will be a pool, and pickleball courts, bocce courts, tennis courts, and just to help orient people a little bit on the site plan. So kind of the lower left corner is the intersection of Loza and Columbus. That is our primary entrance to the site. There is also a secondary entrance on Westlake Drive. The road alignment essentially matches that which was approved during the Baker subdivision. Again, trying to match or do better on the environmental impacts that were studied during that approval process. And again, this is indicative of a cluster townhome layout. Other community benefits associated with the project, just so folks get a sense of that. There will be 18.2 acres dedicated to the town for municipal purposes. There will be 49 acres acquired by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. That land will never be able to be developed. It will be retained as open space and maintained by the DEP. There will be an almost 57-acre conservation easement that will be deeded with the property as well, that is separate from the DEP parcel itself. There will also be funding of a new off-site sidewalk to the benefit of the town. The town engineer has recommended that is on Westlake Drive. Again, Toll will be funding that effort for future construction. These will also be private roads, so they will not be maintained by the town, but rather maintained by the HOA. As far as some of the other community details themselves, these 162 townhomes will be primarily 3-bedroom townhomes, ranging from 2,400 to 2,800 square feet. They will all be offered with a master down floor plan, and that is to be in line with the target demographic, right, of age-restricted, age-targeted product. As I'd mentioned before, it's a fully amenitized community, including, again, the clubhouse, pool, tennis court, pickleball, bocce, passive use spaces, right? So again, active adult in the golden years. It will have a condominium structure with a master condo HOA, which will maintain the roads, the landscaping, et cetera. And just going back to the site plan briefly, you will see that there are stormwater management areas that have been thoughtfully designed by our consultant engineer, JMC, a very talented firm, has done a great job with the site development and site plans for this project. And again, what you can kind of see here, Brad, if you wouldn't mind just pointing out here, the DEP parcels are those adjacent to Westlake Drive. You will see the 2 municipal pieces of land that flank either side of the town rec department. Again, that's a nice buffer from the community spaces, which we think is a great benefit. And then you'll see portions of that large 57-acre conservation easement flanking the western side of the property. All in all, we're very excited to bring this to the community and engage with you as we work through the rest of the approval process. I'd like to turn it over to James quickly to just go through a couple items here. As a matter of fact, I'll cover this quick because I think this is pretty straightforward. So as part of Baker, there was not only a wetland buffer disturbance, but also a permanent wetland disturbance. Now, one of the things JMC has done here is they actually designed a different wetland crossing, which you will kind of see in red on the screen here. What that different wetland crossing does is it minimizes the amount of wetland buffer disturbance and actually zeroes out the amount of permanent wetland disturbance. So again, 0 permanent wetland disturbance, which is a huge benefit as compared to the Baker project. Our plan was studied by the town's third-party wetland consultant. No issues were raised. They had a couple very ministerial comments, which will be added to our plans. But again, I think we have their endorsement to date, which is great. As far as landscaping goes, I think this is one of the things Toll does really well, actually. You know, it's designed entirely with native or adaptive species. It's going to be very robust landscaping plan, over 554 proposed new trees. There will be 156 internal shade or street trees, again, helping to shade the roadways, helping to bring down the immediate scale of the new architecture. There will be extensive foundation plantings selected from a palette of small shrubbery, perennials, and ornamental, which will focus on seasonal color and interest. And again, there's over 105 acres of natural woodland to remain between the conservation areas and the DEP acquisition. And from here, I'm going to turn it over to James, again, from JMC, terrific civil engineer and planner, and he will give you a little bit of information on the stormwater aspects of the project.
Good evening, everyone. James Karras with JMC. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the utilities here that we studied on the site. We've been looking at this property for over 2 years now with Toll Brothers, and so we've worked extensively with their office and with the town's engineers and our consultants here with regard to the utilities design and stormwater management on site. So we've designed this in accordance with all New York State DEC requirements, including the local town of Mount Pleasant stormwater management chapter as well. We looked at 7 design points throughout the property to see where the overland flows are going under existing conditions. And then within those design points, we looked at 14 sub-drainage areas to manage the new development that's going on. And we provided a series of surface ponds with detention and infiltration practices, which are green practices under the Stormwater Design Manual. Water quality structures are provided ahead of every practice, and all of the peak flows leaving the sites that we analyzed up to the 100-year storm are being maintained or reduced under post-development conditions. So we put a lot of good work into this in conjunction with the town, and we're pleased to continue our work as we move through the process.
And just one other thing I think I'll note is that we've worked very closely with town staff, including David Smith, the town engineer. He has been extremely helpful to us in getting us to the point where we are today. We have picked up, I think, the vast majority of his comments in our plans. I think Dave is pretty happy with where the plans are today. By and large, that concludes the formal portion of our presentation. Again, I wanted to thank everyone for being here this evening, and we look forward to listening to you and hearing your comments this evening.
Okay, and thank you very much. The board's probably going to have a couple of questions or comments, and I jumped the gun. So we still have the 14 folks that have raised their hands, so you still have your numbers, so hold on to those numbers for a little bit. But the board's going to have a few questions, I'm sure, too. I just want to make sure that the public, can we hear in the back? Yes or no? So? Okay. So Lenny, just make sure the sound is good. I'm going to ask whoever's speaking in the mic, it's really critical that everybody could hear. So our sound system is okay. You know, Lenny does a really good job, but our equipment maybe is not. Oh, okay. We got great speakers. Okay, so I'm being corrected, which is good. But just make sure you speak directly into the mic, because I don't know if everybody's hearing. I'm seeing a little of this in the back, so I want to make sure people can hear. So with that being said, I do want to bring up 2 things that I saw myself, and I think other board members have seen things too. So we'll hold off on that. One question came today, or maybe yesterday. Each day blends together, and to the applicant, it was a compelling note that came from a local resident whose husband was an amputee, and they wanted to know, are there bedrooms on the first floor, the master or the primary suite, and also could the unit be modified for such a situation? If you can, thank you.
Be happy to.
And
So,
just speak right to the mic. Bring it right up to your chin. Thank you.
Not too close, though.
There you go. That helps.
so given the age-restricted nature of the development, as I had said before, every single unit will be offered with a master down floor plan. And in addition, we will make every effort to accommodate the special needs of our home buyers.
So wider doors, the back. You know, if they bought the unit before it was purchased, before it was built, they could probably make some modifications to it, I'm assuming.
Again, we will make every effort to accommodate the special needs of our home buyers.
Okay, that's a very carefully crafted response, but I understand.
And just one other thing I kind of wanted to get out ahead of that I might have missed in our presentation, and that's related to a commitment that we made to the town board.
Yeah.
And that is to offer in 25% of the locations on this plan a smaller footprint, a smaller home at a lower price point. So I just wanted to kind of clear the air and get that back out there. That's a commitment we've made to the town board, and we are going to commit to carry forward.
Okay. So the other question I think you may want to hang up for a few minutes is one of the conversations that I've seen in email correspondence was regarding there's the traffic conversation after the building the buildings are built, and there's the traffic conversation while it's being built.
Sure.
So what is the plan for getting trucks, equipment, people, contractors, all that into the site?
Sure, so happy to answer that. So to refresh from the prior Baker approval, there were no prohibitions imposed on construction access. Just be very clear about that. Now, I do greatly appreciate, as does Toll, community safety, and we understand this one respondent's concerns related to traffic, construction access, and the potential for issues. But the nature of construction at this scale simply requires a secondary means of construction access. Now, the project kind of has two phases, right? And that's basically east-west. There is the portion of the project on the western portion of the site via Loza. That is phase one. So phase one of the project, construction access will be routed via Columbus Avenue to Loza up through the site. That phase of the project will be built out. As it nears completion, phase two will begin. So actually, I believe one of the comments from this letter, and I think I actually brought it with me here this evening, I asked that the developer may consider only opening the proposed access at Westlake Drive at the very end of construction to avoid construction traffic from coming and going through the residential neighborhood. So what I can say is that construction access for phase one will be Columbus Avenue via Loza. However, as I said, it is infeasible to build this project with one entrance. So as phase two begins, it will be required that we have Westlake Drive as a construction access point.
Well, why is it infeasible?
Simply, if you look at the plan, the distance between the two areas, and also there will be finished roads with people living in those homes themselves.
Yeah, but there are people living in the homes you're driving through the neighborhoods of.
You're absolutely right. But just the nature of, again, where the routing comes from, coming and going contractors in and out of the site, it will be infeasible.
Yeah, I don't want to go back and forth, but I'll say this, and I hear Joan too. It's a concern, and I don't believe, and I would want to dig into why it's not feasible. We don't have to answer it tonight, and I don't want. By the way, folks, let's just one speaker at a time, including all of us. So let's just try and keep the order. I want to dig into that, and I think that's going to be a big conversation because you're asking the town residents to endure some hardship, to have trucks coming in and out, and hearing that a contiguous piece of property that we can't have the majority of the traffic going through the main thoroughfare versus the secondary thoroughfare is questionable to me.
Well, it's also just relation to the size of trucks, turnaround areas, et cetera, right? So it's many different multifaceted reasons, but just as one other quick point, to assuage some concerns, the sight lines were deeply studied by JMC for the Westlake Drive entrance. So as far as contractors being able to see cars coming and going, seeing people, the sight lines were more than sufficient.
So I'm not going to go too far back and forth with you tonight. Remember when I said you guys are going to sharpen your pencils and
Yes.
have your paper? So that's going to be one of the things I want
Sure.
addressed by the applicant because to me it's a big application. There's two post building is a whole other conversation, but there's certainly things that we can do, and I know I've been in the planning board field for a long time, and I know applicants and builders tend to do what's easier for them versus what's better for the community, and we need to do what's better for the community on this one. If we can find ways to mitigate and have less traffic going through Westlake Drive, where there's a school and people and kids and bikes and all these other things going on, and we can have cars routed through alternate means, I think we need to investigate that and do some heavy investigation into that to make sure that we are minimizing impact to the community during the construction phase. Okay?
As you said, we are sharpening our pencil tonight, and we are happy to offer
Okay.
some more response in the future.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments from board members?
You stated you were going to build some smaller units. Does that mean 2-bedroom units?
We haven't honed in on exactly what the architecture is yet. It will be less than 2,000 square feet. And as I said, offered at a lower price point than the standard homes in the community.
There are no how tall are the buildings?
So they're 2 to 2.5 story townhomes.
Okay.
Sorry, they're
Oh, me.
They want to hear you. Sing a song.
Sing a song. So my question was, how many, how small were the smaller units going to be? It's an affordable housing thing,
They're not.
They're not
They're not affordable homes. They're at a lower price
a
point.
lower price point.
Right? So, and I don't mean, I mean, they're not affordable in the affordable housing sense.
Right,
As it
right.
means.
Yeah, I
Correct.
understand that. That's
So-
always been a funny term to me anyway.
Yes. But they
okay.
will be less than 2,000 square feet, smaller than our typical homes, and offered at a lower price point.
Okay.
Are there any affordable units under the Westchester County affordable? Are there any affordable units under the Westchester County affordable?
Affordable housing, as far as
Housing.
AFFH units, were not required on this project.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from board members?
What's the duration of construction?
Hard to say. Very hard to say. I would say for the entirety of the project, somewhere in the realm of 3+ years is my guess.
So the question, I'm going to repeat that. So the question was, how long do we anticipate the construction phase would take? The answer that came back was 3 years. 3 years,
3+.
approximately, 3+. And folks, I'm going to address one thing tonight. And I just need everybody to be silent for one moment. This is a formal meeting. This is not a rally. So I'm going to ask everybody, the applicant has the right to go through the process, the board has to go through it. We want to make sure that we give everybody the opportunity to hear, and we have to make sure everybody has the opportunity to speak. So I know there's a lot of sentiment about for or against. I don't know what everybody's thinking, but my job as the planning board chairman is to make sure we have good order. So if you can refrain from the shouting and the chuckling and the laughing, some things are funny, and I get it, but you know, just try to remember that this is a formal process. I've asked him to sharpen his pencil, to take notes, and he's going to do that. We're going to bring questions to him, and he's going to do that. But we cannot have this turn into a rally. Otherwise, I wouldn't be the chairman, because then you don't need a chairman. Okay? So we'll continue, but let's just remember that to keep good order. Any other questions or comments from board members?
I have a question. Has a formal phasing plan been done? I know you said phase 1, phase 2, but has it?
Believe that was
So I'm going to, just one thing, everybody speaking to their mics, because evidently we're not projecting so
What
good.
I was. Has a formal phasing plan been completed?
I believe that was submitted as part of the civil engineering plans and SWIP. So just phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from board members? You see the difference? If you speak over here or you speak over here, people can hear better when you're over here. So just, and even the applicant. So, and why am I making a big point of this? Because it's a public hearing, and the applicant knows, and we know, we're here so you guys can hear us. If you're not hearing us, it's a problem. And we're dealing with the technology we have, which is very good, evidently, but I just want to emphasize tonight, we're here to make sure we're heard. So, speaking to the mics. Any other questions or comments from board members?
I have another question. Are your hours of work 8 to 4, Monday to Friday, or you plan on applying for a variance for something else?
The hours of work will comply with town standards and regulations.
And just another note that you'll be running a lot of trucks in and out. I guess phase 1 via Loza and phase 2 to be determined. There's also a DEP project that's out there around on Columbus Avenue down by Lakeview. So I'm curious, are you going to be running all your trucks down that way, where they will also be running trucks out of there as well?
That I can't say. I'm not familiar with that project, but happy to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? I mean, from board members, and again, just speak directly to the mics. I'm definitely getting feedback from folks that are here in the back. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll take silence as a no. So last we left off, when I jumped the gun, and even the chairman makes mistakes, especially the chairman makes mistakes, we had 14 speakers. So with that being said, let's get back to why we're here. Do we have 15? We have 15, okay. That's certainly good. We have 15 speakers. I'm going to ask you guys again to limit it to less than 5 minutes. I'm going to ask the applicant to prepare, to take notes with a sharpened pencil and paper. And I'm also going to ask the applicant to prepare a response so we have a written response from you at some point in the future. So every question will be heard and every question will be responded to. You may not like the answer that comes back to you. You may like the answer that comes back to you. My guess is everyone's going to be a little bit unhappy tonight, but that's the process we're in, right? We're in a democracy where everybody's happy and unhappy at the same time. So we'll do the best we can. All right. So with that being said, I think the lady in blue, you're number 15, correct? I had to ask you to remind me. Thank you. So we have 15 members of the public. Can I have speaker number 1 come up to the mic? Again, speak clearly into the mic. You can grab the mic. Don't be shy. And I say that because, again, people are listening and they want to hear you. Take it right off the stand if you'd like.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
What's that?
No answers tonight.
Well,
Correct, yeah. So just to be clear, you're going to make your comments, and then the applicant is going to take notes, and then he's going to respond. We're not going to go back and forth too much tonight. We will in the future, but this is the first public hearing. My anticipation will be more than one public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
And you address things to the board. That's how it goes, just so you
I
know.
speak to the board?
Speak to
Yes.
the board, and then we'll make sure the applicant is listening.
Okay. Thank you to the board for all the work you do and for giving us this opportunity. Thank you to Toll Brothers for presenting this. I'm going to stand over here so I can see the board.
I'm sorry, your name for the
And
record,
my name is Rick Satola,
and where you live?
and I live at 38 Eastview Drive on the West Lake side. And I'm going to ask about traffic after completion. And I'm going to lay out a scenario before I do that. And my scenario comes with unverified numbers, just from my thinking about the project logically. We know there are 162 three-bedroom units with 2 cars each. And this is for leaseholders who are over 55. I suspect that adult children may end up living in some of these units. So I estimate maybe 400 people living at this facility at capacity. Therefore, probably 400 cars in this facility at capacity. Many of the people being 55 and older, and with perhaps young adults living there, will be working age, and they will be leaving the facility in the morning to go to work and returning the facility after work. Therefore, a lot of cars will be leaving and returning the facility. Housing, house cleaning, and ground maintenance staff will be going in and out every day. Deliveries, Amazon, and food deliveries, garbage removal. I estimate about 200 trucks per day for delivery and garbage servicing this site. So I just described a scenario of a lot of traffic leaving and returning the site. The bulk of the units, and therefore the bulk of the traffic, is on the West Lake side. West Lake Drive, I believe, is currently a high-risk road. It's narrow with no sidewalks. It's used by pedestrians and joggers. School buses stop on it to drop off kids and pick up kids. There's a daycare center at PepsiCo. It has a long, straight runway, and frankly, people drive too fast on it. And there's that dangerous sharp turn. So that's a dangerous scenario, and I wonder, when is the highway department going to tell us about the traffic light that you're going to install on Westlake Drive to manage this high risk? And so I have a few questions to the developers. Should the development bear the cost of a school bus pullover to move kids and buses off of the road? should the development bear the cost of adding sidewalks from perhaps Westlake High School to Town Hall? And should the Westlake entrance only be used for emergency use and therefore be a one-way road to restrict the traffic to fire trucks, first responders, ambulances? Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, so, and the applicant I see is taking notes on that, so we're going to continue because we have a lot to go through. And thank you for your comments and thank you for coming out. So we have speaker number 2. Speaker number 2. Good evening, and thank you for coming out tonight. Just grab that mic. Don't be shy. It's your name and all. Good. That's what we need.
Okay. I don't want to repeat everything this gentleman just
Just
said.
your name and your...
My name is Bob Brilla.
And where are you
I live
from?
at 4 Halsey Place,
Thank you.
Valhalla. And I don't want to repeat what this gentleman just said because it's like word for word out of my mouth. I do agree with him that from the map that they show that the majority of these homes are going to be towards the Westlake side coming out onto Halsey Place. I don't understand, with all the maps that we have showing this information, why does it have to come out to Westlake Drive? You can come out onto Stevens Avenue. I know you need 2 exits, and he mentions that it's the primary exit is for Columbus. That'll only be for the phase 1, right, the one that's going to be close to Columbus. Everything else is going to come in and out of Westlake Drive, and the traffic's going to be insane. You cannot put a traffic light onto Westlake Drive. That would be even worse than anything else. Right? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, speaker number 3. Thank you. I have somebody who, she knows, I'm a little fun comment. I can't keep track of the numbers of all the speakers, so Joan keeps me in line. So thank you, Joan. Speaker number 3.
Sorry, I'm a little tall. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dave Pond. I live at 246 Westlake Drive on the corner of Roberta and Westlake. As the 2 previous speakers have said, I really want to stress the importance of a sidewalk pre-construction to this event. As in a letter dated on January 18th, it was noted, and I'm paraphrasing, the Baker Corporation was mandated to install a sidewalk along Westlake Drive. If deemed infeasible, the alternative was a sidewalk on Columbus Avenue. Given the assessment of this project would not accommodate school-age children, we are now seeking a practical solution to honor this commitment. I want to stress to the board that a sidewalk on Westlake Drive is not just a preference, but an absolute necessity. Westlake Drive is a crucial artery in our community with the recreational center Westlake campus and already heavily trafficked by cars who often go much too fast and is often trafficked by school children, dog walkers, walkers, and runners. With the impending development, we'll bring an additional, as the other gentleman stated, 400 plus cars, plus delivery trucks, service vehicles, and other traffic. The dangers to pedestrians and children will be increased. The safety of our residents, especially our children, must be a top priority in this project, especially during this construction phase with phase 2 opening onto Westlake Drive, if that is actually what happens. Therefore, I urge that this board must hold Toll Brothers accountable to the prior commitment and ensure the installation of this sidewalk along Westlake Drive prior to phase 1 construction of this project.
Thank you.
Thank you
for coming out. Okay, speaker number 4. Speaker number 4. Okay, you're speaker number 4 now.
Carlo Valente, I'm from Hawthorne. A couple of questions, and forgive me if I don't know the answer. The Baker proposal, hasn't that expired?
No.
No, okay, so that's still good. All right, so regarding the review on the Baker proposal regarding the wetlands review, 2019, 2018-ish, I think we need an updated review, and forgive me if it's already done because times have changed and we have way more water than we do, and we have flooding on Columbus Avenue. I understand that Toll Brothers is out there to make money, but regarding the accommodations that some people are looking for, if it's not in writing where it says maybe we'll make every attempt, it's never guaranteed. And I get it, you know, this project isn't guaranteed, so nobody should be talking, saying that when you guys do this. It's if we decide. I was also curious about, as everyone is, traffic study, because if we have 500 plus vehicles that are coming in and out, we have the school there, we have residents there, it's going to affect the after-school activities, the dances, the third party, the voting, the sports, et cetera, that happens all around the area. Also, I was curious if the fire department or any first responders had a review on this project. I noticed that in the project itself, there's limited area to the rear of these buildings, and if these townhouses, condos need to get access, if we have access to that area, I understand that there's utility easements around there as well. I'm trying to be as quickly as possible. There were about 1,600 pages that were in the review. My computer couldn't open up all those pages, so if this is in there, I apologize. What else? Oh, also, has there been a sewer sanitation review tying into existing utilities, if those are up to date, if those need to be replaced, things like that? And then also, the response that we had to the 1,600 pages was only 2 pages, and a couple items where it says, you know, if properly maintained, if the banks of the brook, nothing should be if, everything should be definitely or anything that we respond. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Carolyn, do you remember, did we get, I think we did put the material in the library, didn't we? So folks, for those people who, I always like to bring this up for the non-digital people who are out there, and there's a lot of people who are non-digital. There is all of the material that we've reviewed is available at the Mount Pleasant Public Library in Pleasantville. So Carlo, thank you for bringing that up. I just want to make sure people are aware that if you want to go to the library and check out these materials, just get yourself up to the library. You're more than welcome to take a look at it. I know some folks are not too keen on going on the computer. So.
And Jim, it's also.
And it's also here in the building as well. Thank you for that. Okay, so speaker number 6.
5.
Oh, 5. So, I would not do well without her. Speaker number 5. You can just grab the mic and speak right into it. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, good evening, everybody. And
just your name and where you're from?
My name is Ekaterina Jonas. I am residing at 74 Madison Avenue in Valhalla. My main concern about this development is that it can potentially threaten wildlife. I mean, if you pass from the pool to the road, there is a wetland there, and there is much of wildlife residing there, and the project is massive, and it will probably cut a lot of trees. We will lose a lot of greenery. So I would like to see a comprehensive study on biodiversity, and is it going to be threatened by this project? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I have the right number. Speaker number 6.
Got it.
Hi, boy. Thank you, John. Speaker number 6. Welcome. Just in your name and where you're from for the record.
Chris. I live in Thornwood. I really just have one question. Bunch of rumors flying around. 55 and over. If the first family is 55 and over, if they sell, is it still 55 and over, or can younger people? That's it. Have a good night.
Yes, it is. Speaker number 7. Speaker number 7. Speaker number 7. Okay, you want to be 7? Okay, we have a new number 7. Lucky 7, right? Okay, speaker number 7. Just grab the mic and don't be afraid to. And we have people who are watching on TV, so I want to make sure people hear. So just grab the mic and speak directly into it.
Okay, so my name is Daniel Blaze. I live at Myrtle Avenue in Hawthorne, and I have a bunch of questions. So I'm just going to kind of rattle them off with a little bit of statement in it. So we know it's going to change the wetlands. My concern is handling maximum amount of drainage, not minimum. It's great to do minimum. It's easy to do minimum. It's lead of minimum or whatever. But storms are changing. Weather patterns are changing. We need to prepare for the worst case scenario, not the minimum, right? So that's my first. Can we prepare for the worst case scenarios and not the minimum?
Can I just paraphrase back to what I think I heard? So essentially, what I think I'm hearing is you want to hear how they're going to prepare for that 100-year storm that happens every year.
Exactly. That was one of my statements too. Yeah. I don't want to hear the 100-year storm because that's irrelevant these days. I want to hear about the 1-year storms that with all the water flowing all over the place.
Okay.
What's the plan for that? The maximum approach to it, not the minimum. It's easy to do minimum. Okay. So. Next question, will there be a contractual obligation to only 55 plus? Like, is it in a contract? Is it in something that says that they're always, because my concern is, maybe there's not enough 55-year-olds that want to move here and live here. So is it going to change?
I'm going to address that quick question because it may come up later. And I'm not going to answer for the applicant. It's a deed restriction, correct? You can stay right there. So you're gonna provide a response to that from the other questions, but it's a deed restriction.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that, but I'll look it up. Okay.
Okay.
Nobody ever under 55.
Okay. Well, that's good. Okay. So, and I should have made this statement in the beginning, but Toll Brothers is a publicly traded company, right? So they have a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders to do the minimum and make the maximum profit. Let's be realistic here, right? Minimum fiduciary responsibility to make the maximum profit. They don't want to do the road because it's more expensive to put it out on Columbus and do the U-turn and all that stuff. That being said, fiduciary, right? Is there any tax abatement or delay for when people buy these units? Do they get a tax abatement?
No.
Is there a plan? Okay. Is Toll Brothers maintaining ownership of the development and managing it, or is it going to be after it's developed sold to a different company?
I'm not going to
real
answer
estate company.
We will answer the question, but the applicant's going to provide that response.
Okay. When was the Baker study conducted? You don't have to answer that, but when was the Baker? Another gentleman said. I mean, we're citing a study that things have changed in 3 years. I mean, we keep citing a study that's already old. So I think a new study. My request is a new study needs to be done on drainage, on impact, on everything.
So on everything. When you say everything, you're saying drainage, you're saying environment, you're saying traffic.
Those are the top three concerns, right? Drainage, environment, traffic.
Okay.
I mean, those are what else do we have here? I have a small dissertation. So, are you taking into account? Well, we talked about school traffic. So, school traffic, right? Are we really going to take into account school traffic? Because the buses go to the high school there along Westlake Drive, Columbus Elementary, all those construction vehicles. I mean, the kids are going to be late to school every day. Like, there's got to be a plan in place. I'm asking. If this goes forward, it has to be a plan that takes into account anything.
And I'm just clarifying your question, if you don't mind. You're asking pre and post construction.
During, and post.
Okay, so the applicant needs to respond to that, pre, post, and during.
However they do it, because I don't want the kids to late to school. They need to be in school.
Understood. Okay.
That already happens now with Westlake single lane. So with that, the traffic, right? So the Toll Brothers has said that they need I'm a little cloudy on this, but the gentleman said that they needed to discharge the trucks on Westlake because of something having to do with bandwidth or capacity or something. And I'm a little confused with that. So I'd like a better answer or more clarification on that, because you're saying you need to discharge into a single lane each way road as opposed to discharging on Columbus, which is 2 lanes each way.
And just to get the applicant focused, are you talking about the pre or post construction?
I mean, I guess I'm talking about both.
Okay.
But pre is big because the trucks.
So your question is, why are we dumping traffic on
Westlake
on pre and post construction?
And even
Gotcha. Okay, we're good.
Stevens. I mean, it should really go back to Columbus because there's 2 lanes in each way.
I'm just narrowing the question for
I understand.
the applicant. Yep.
I know I can talk, so I can go off. So, the developer talked about studying the impact of a lot of different things. Are they going to come up with plans or solutions for the impacts? Because I hear a lot of, we're studying the impact, we're looking at the impact, we're doing this, but I've heard a couple of solutions, to be fair. I've heard a couple of solutions, but I kind of want to see all the solutions, like what's going to happen, for example, traffic. What is the plan to deal with that?
Right.
Because my worry is, after developers develop the property and everything's good, the town residents are going to be responsible to fix all the problems.
So
I know that's a statement, sorry.
We've asked him to cover already, so
Okay.
he should be good.
Is the development a higher elevation than the surrounding area? Because that's going to contribute to more water drainage problems.
Okay.
I'm just curious if it's I didn't look at the studies, like the other gentleman said, I can't even open up on my phone.
Okay.
And then, water supply bandwidth, right? It's 162 units.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have to connect onto the main, right?
Yeah.
But all that, is the water department really going to be able to handle 163 units of water? I mean, I'm on the other side of town, I probably won't be affected, but the people over here
Understood.
will.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the opportunity.
And thank you for coming out tonight. So, speaker number 9. I know.
Number 8.
Oh, 8. And I said, I know. I was so mesmerized by the previous speaker. He threw me off. I was doing good for 2 numbers in a row. Okay, you're ready.
All right.
Number 8.
Jason Billig, 65 Richard Lane.
Yeah.
So I have plenty of wonderful questions. One is, has anybody looked at the traffic beyond Westlake Drive? Meaning, have you ever tried to make a turn from Westlake onto Nannyhagen during rush hour? Or from, I believe it's Swanson, onto Nannyhagen during rush hour? Add 400 more cars? That is going to be insane. Put a traffic light there to fix the problem, and all of a sudden Richard Lane and Kensico become highways for cars and trucks that already take the overflow of those areas. Those roads are too small, too dark, have people walking on them, cannot take overflow. So I would want a study bigger than Westlake Drive. I want to understand those intersections and how those intersections are going to accommodate all that extra traffic with school buses that already cannot make the turns. Just go there during school hours. You'll see it. Buses can't make the turns. Now we're going to add all these other vehicles. That's one. 2, the deed. So it's in the deed that it's 55. Does that mean that the people moving in, and there are 300 plus people, can come and vote and be here just like we are to change the deed to sell the houses in the future?
No.
Never, ever, can't vote it, can't do anything?
No.
Okay. I'd also like, looking at the nice map there, to understand why there can't be an exit onto Columbus Avenue where there's already a traffic light, where there's already 2 lanes of open space for people to exit and enter that facility. Why does it have to be Westlake Drive? There looks like plenty of room there. There's no residential homes there. There's the school, which I don't like adding there, but there's already a traffic light there. So that should be something that should be addressed and should be studied. You have to keep the cars out of Nannyhagen to Columbus to the reservoir. We can't take it back there. I also noticed it was $166K extra for the town. That is not a lot of money for the amount of people that are going to be added to this town. What else can be done to increase what we're giving up for this project to go in? What else can be provided to the citizens that live here? And as far as bringing product to the town of townhomes, I don't know, but when I moved here because it was a single-family home community. That whole area is single-family homes. Now we're totally changing that by the hundreds. So what are we going to do for the people who bought in, and I had to buy at the height of the market, by the way, for those communities, for the people that have moved in that now have to live with this extra tax and burden and everything to our area?
And we'll have the applicant respond to that.
All right.
And I would also like the applicant to include what you're doing with the property that you're going to provide to the town and the DEP property as well in that comment, in that response. You understand what I'm saying? So he's asking about the benefits to the community. In that benefit to the community analysis, we're going to showcase or highlight the property that's going to be sent back.
But I strongly suggest a long look at all of the traffic areas. Nanny from end to end. There's already big trucks and 18-wheelers coming through because it's the only way to get from 684 to this community.
Yep.
And you know what that road is like. And now we're just going to add all of this to there. It's not just a Westlake problem. It's a community problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I don't get any applause, by the way, when I speak. All right, number 9.
They're happy you got the number right.
That's right. It was Joan.
Hello, my name's John Mercaldi. I live on High Clear Lane. I live on High Clear Lane in Valhalla. My question is about the stormwater.
One more time, Carolyn can hear you. The name.
My name is John Mercaldi. I live on High Clear Lane in Valhalla.
Thank you.
My question is about the stormwater runoff. So currently, the stormwater runoff on that area runs into Clovebrook, which runs into the Bronx River. So am I correct in assuming that this is going to add more stormwater into Clovebrook, which then has to run down to the Bronx River?
So let me summarize that so the applicant understands. You're saying what leads into Clovebrook?
The stormwater runoff from the area now leads into Clovebrook, which is on the other side of Columbus Avenue and runs down towards Lakeview Avenue.
Okay.
Is this going to add more water into Clovebrook? Because Clovebrook is now flooding, and so are all of the bridges along the way.
We'll get a response for you.
Okay. Secondly, the sanitary sewer line that's coming out of this project, where does it attach to the town sewer? And are there going to be any improvements in size in the town sewer?
Okay.
All right. And then thirdly, the open space area number 1, which is the space adjacent to Columbus Avenue. Is that going to remain in the current state that it's in now? Now we're talking about putting a road through there. Is that going to be leveled and planted, or is it going to remain in its natural state? So the land on Columbus, from the school to Stevens Avenue, going up towards the project. What's the finished state of that land?
And that's the property that's going to be, are you referring to the property that's going to be donated to the town, or are you referring to?
No, it looks like that's the open space.
Oh, the open space, gotcha. So, okay.
So it's along Columbus Avenue?
Yep, gotcha.
Running along Columbus, going up the hill.
Yep, the applicant, he's going to take note of that, and we'll get that response to you.
And then just lastly, the construction traffic. You guys are addressing the construction traffic close to the project, but where are these trucks coming from? Are they traveling through downtown Valhalla, through Thornwood, through Nannyhagen Road to 684? Where are the majority of the construction trucks coming from and going to daily?
Yeah.
So because we've closed the top of the dam, the only way to Interstate 287 is through downtown Valhalla. So are we going to see a line of construction vehicles? We're already going to have that with the other project.
Yeah, and that's a big question for me as well. You know, construction traffic for 3 years, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Understood.
That's all.
Thank you. Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay. Speaker number 10. Oh, wow. I'm almost getting this right. Speaker number 10. Thank you. Just state your name and who you are for the record.
Hi, my name is Jessica Tosto. I live at 706 Sherman Avenue in Thornwood. I'm going to try not to reiterate too many of the questions that have already been addressed, but I am coming to you on behalf of many parents of school-age children in the area, and a big concern that we have is how the age restriction for these units will be reinforced. And I've heard, it's a deep restriction. No, absolutely, they can't change it, but I think that we would really like a little bit more transparency and clarity on how exactly those age restrictions are going to be reinforced. If in 5 years these units aren't selling because they're not designed for the target audience that they say they have in mind, and Toll Brothers owes it to their shareholders to make a profit, are they going to then, be able to change these conditions and open it up to people who are under 55? And is it only the person who owns the house that has to be 55, or is it everybody that lives in the home that has to be 55? And how is it going to be reinforced? Because if you're an elderly person and your your adult child with young kids gets divorced and they need a place to live, are you going to turn them away and say, no, they can't live in your home? Or are you, like, I feel like that's putting the homeowners in a really awkward position. And that's, one scenario. But I feel like these are things that could realistically happen.
So I'll jump in. I'm not going to comment. That was a big question for me over the last several meetings, and I will say I'm going to ask the applicant to make sure that we're very specific about how we're going to be addressing that question, because we want that written in so the public understands what those restrictions are and how they're going to operate.
Thank you. My other comment is that there seems to be interest in smaller and more affordable units that are actually targeted to the demographic that you say you're targeting to. So smaller townhomes, 2-bedroom townhomes, single-story townhomes. Why are we only asking them to provide 25% of this construction project to those types of homes? Why can't they give a larger percentage to homes that actually would meet the needs of the population that they're targeting? And then just one more note on the traffic. I live on Sherman Avenue. It is not near Westlake, but we are impacted by traffic and people cutting through our neighborhood roads on a daily basis. I've been to the town planning boards when they developed the master plan. Sidewalks and traffic safety concerns have been brought up to this town for years, and nothing has been done. And I live on a street where people routinely use it as a cut-through to avoid going down Commerce. I have school-aged kids. They ride their bikes. They walk to the bus. They're going to be walking home from school. I am terrified every day that they're going to be mowed down. And now you're adding 400 more cars that are going to be impacting even more traffic throughout, not just by Westlake, but that's going to roll over into the rest of the town. And we haven't addressed the traffic safety issues that we currently have, and now we're about to make them astronomically worse. So I would ask you to very clearly and closely look at that concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker number 11. Speaker number 11. Do we have speaker 11? Oh, we have speaker 11. Do we have speaker 11?
I'm Rich Vinci, live at 8 Pine Road. Just one question. Can you just educate us on what the process is from here? So this is a hearing, and this is just a question about how government works, but we have this hearing. Is it ultimately going to come to a decision that you all make, or is it literally a vote of the town on if this passes or not? So that's kind of a procedural question.
No, it's a fair question. You're in the process now, and you're in a public hearing, and this board is the decision maker on the application, whether it proceeds or not. So we're taking the input from the public. We take that input, and we ask the applicant to reflect and provide salient comments back to the public, and we listen to the public. That's why we're here, and then we make a decision at this board. Not tonight, but we will make a decision at some point either for or against this application.
So it's not something that will ever go to a vote for the town? No. Okay. No. And just two more things. Just sidewalks, huge, obvious. That needs to be taken care of. And my 9th grade daughter, she brought up a good point before I came about homes. She said, well, but now you're building the homes for the 55 and older, so Waldo, who lives next door to us, they're going to move there, and then a new young family is going to move in with kids. So she's like, it's going to bring kids. So the applicant saying 0 kids, I don't know, that didn't sit right.
Oh, okay.
So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Speaker number 12. Speaker 12.
Good evening, Paul Palazzo.
Just do me a favor, just speak directly into that mic.
Paul Palazzo, Valhalla.
Thank you.
I had, first of all, one question overall on the project. My first question is, my understanding in New York State, in terms of the grid, the power grid, that there's a moratorium on gas, so in terms of new housing, will there be gas heat in the house? And also, what is the impact of 162 units on the electrical grid? Has that been looked into and examined as an impact? Again, my understanding is that there was supposed to be a moratorium during New York State. on new houses and gas.
Yep.
So that's my one question overall on the project. My one concern on the project is in terms of construction, Lotsa Drive. Again, many people have regards on construction vehicular traffic. I just don't see in regards to phase one of the project, all the construction vehicular traffic. Will there be impositions, hopefully, in terms of flagmen, traffic safety, monitoring traffic coming in? Also, my other concern is on construction trucks coming in and out. Will there be washdown stations, hopefully for trucks, because you have concrete trucks, there'll be dirt. So what will be the impositions, and also will the density be looked at 100, just the phase one portion on Lotsa? I just think that that's going to be a critical part of the project to examine what restrictions could be in place during construction on construction vehicular traffic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speaker number 13. Speaker 13, Lucky 13.
Jimmy, you may want to mention the moratorium was lifted last year.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
there is, gas moratorium has been lifted from Con Edison.
Elena Vietz. I live on Westchester Avenue in Thornwood. I have concerns about the site of this project. First of all, the proximity to the town, to the schools. My main concern is about the environmental impact. So I want to understand how many trees will be cleared with this project. He might have mentioned it. I may have missed that. How will the applicant replace the trees that are cleared? Trees, depending on the type of species, can take 20 to 30 years to reach maturity. So the impact of removing those trees on our environment is substantial. Communities without tree canopy cover are 11 to 19 degrees hotter. So removing trees from our community is going to impact the temperatures. It's also going to impact carbon capture when we have traffic going right by this development. Additionally, the applicant mentioned that a portion of the land will be managed by the DEP. I'm wondering if there is a process by which that applicant could then come back and say, I would like to unrestrict this land and continue further development in the future. And in general, I'm concerned about how this will impact the character of the community. I feel that having a lot of trees around, this is my main concern, having a lot of trees around, having a nice landscape and a well-planned community makes this a very nice place to live, and I'm concerned about how this development project will impact that.
And thank you. And we do have tonight, and he's going to be a speaker tonight. Can give a plug to our CAC, Conservation Advisory Committee, who is our next speaker. The segue could not be better. Our CAC chairman is coming up, and he's going to speak about trees and the nature, and he does a tremendous amount of work for the town in helping us and guide us as a board. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I always prefer if you lower expectations rather than raise them before I come up. But Stephen Cavey, I'm the chair of the Conservation Advisory Council. Let me say that, so this is a good follow-up from the last speaker. We did, in this process, review every element of the application from the early days of seeker back 5 or so years ago with the application under Baker, and we raised concerns at that time about the zoning interpretation that allowed for the number of units that were approved under Baker. And then we continue to raise concerns about the rezoning of the site that allowed the a multiple of the number of units of Baker for the current plan that we're reviewing right now. And the reason why I raise this point is that we introduced in our letter, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, it was late today, but we did send again our comments from a month or so ago, the rezoning of the property, increasing the number of units to 162. Apropos of what the last speaker said, yes, that does have an impact on the environment, and we did raise the concerns about the proximity, the density of the homes and the location close to each other that reduces the amount of space between the residences, providing for another opportunity for trees to be placed between the homes. And we do recognize the applicant made a point that, that the density did reduce the amount of disturbance in some ways, but the other way of reducing the amount of disturbance is having a reduced number of units. And that was the proposal that we had suggested. And so we continue to raise that here at this public hearing, and we introduced it into the record in our public comments, written comments today. The zoning, though, has been approved, and so it's important to understand, as far as I know then, that what we see in front of us is more than likely the end result. Now it only becomes, I often like to say that at this point in the public hearing, it's all over but the tears. At this moment, we can talk about some of the limited elements here and how we might address environmental impacts, but ultimately what we see is probably very close to what we're going to get, unless the board determines that the impacts are too difficult to mitigate based on public comments and actually does a reduction of the lot count, the unit count, I should say. Let me go on to some specifics, and that is that one of the comments we made at the time of rezoning and again today is that the applicant is proposing the use of fossil fuels for all the utilities on the site. And we'd like to see that at least, at a minimum, that they offer the opportunity for heat pumps. This is part of the decarbonization that's critical at this time. We're looking towards reduction of fossil fuel use, and the current plan does not even consider that as an option. We would have liked to have seen it incorporated as part of the end result of the development, but at a minimum, at this stage, this ought to be introduced as an option for homeowners, to at least those who have environmental concerns and those who wish to move in the decarbonization direction have that opportunity in their home sites. The other thing, and this is a little bit, I don't want to pander to the audience by continuing to build up on these issues on traffic and such, but this is a consequence. The traffic is a consequence of the number of units. And so when the public raises these concerns about traffic and access, some of this could be mitigated by the number of units that are ultimately approved. More basic on this, and I continue to have this discussion with the applicant, the use of the term adaptive trees is, to be clear, is not native. And we've had this discussion before, and we do want to ask the board that, that the applicant be directed to have a review of the landscaping plan. If they want to use natives, then say natives. If they don't want to use all natives, then don't say adaptive. It's not a fair term. It's not realistic. It does not reflect a use of all natives. Now, I understand that they probably are planning on going to what we expect to be a 70% threshold for the value, habitat value of native plants. Just by way of explanation, that's the minimum percentage of landscaping that at least provides some habitat value, is 70%. So we want to see that, but we'd like to see even more at this point. That is one of the things that the applicant can do for the community, and that's not just this community of Mount Pleasant, but it's community on the planet that we live on, and it's an important element that the applicant could provide. Now, after all that criticism, let me come back and ask a favor of the applicant, and that is that the master plan calls for a trailway within the town, and the Conservation Advisory Council has been working through the mapping of the area, and one of the ways in which the trailway might work and should work would be across the applicant's property. So we'd like to see the applicant consider that. We can offer some specific maps. One of the plans actually goes in between some townhouses, so that may be something that they may be less likely to consider. It's actually one of the better ways, but there are other routes that we can consider, but we did want to have that introduced here in the public hearing, in the public record, as one of the conditions that the applicant would agree to as a resolution, in the resolution of approval. I also would just want to say, just to assure people that there are some positive elements to a less intensive development here of an age 55 and over restricted deed. And that is a deed restriction that people can't vote out that deed. That's a legal document, and ultimately, some type of development was going to happen on this piece of property. We tried very hard to see some different ways in which this would be developed. We opposed the bisecting of the property with the transit across the wetlands, and that was an issue, but ultimately it was determined that that was an acceptable plan, and so that's what we're living with right now. I also want to just finish up with, I don't see Dennis Corelli here. He wrote a letter. Dennis Corelli is he's a town resident and the environmental coordinator in the town of Newcastle. And frankly, he beat me to the punch on some stuff, and he wrote a very clear letter about the concerns about how stormwater retention might actually reduce the amount of water going into the watershed beneath the property and have a negative impact on other wetlands on the site. And so he called for a very specific type of study that we'd like to see followed up on and reviewed by the town engineer and also by the town wetlands consultant, who at this point, if it's the one who did the initial one or another one who may be more qualified for this specific type of study. He also introduced some elements which we planned on introducing tonight anyway, and that is transit for wildlife across the wetlands. There are ways, low-impacted development, ways in which the transit for habitat for the inhabitants of the site who are there now, that's the wildlife, can get from point to point. Now that we put up this bridge and these home sites and these roadways, it creates a hazard for these small mammals and reptiles, and there are measures that can be taken so that they can cross the road and continue to provide at least some habitat for them without specific dangers. So those were introduced. Our letter today supported that and concur with his conclusions, and also introduced it as part of the CAC comments. Ultimately, we're looking at a development here that, if it's approved in the current form, will have a number of impacts. There may be some ways to minimize or mitigate those impacts, but at 162 units, it's going to be awfully hard. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to just pivot off of one of Stephen's points, which I think is something that is a quick thing for the applicant to consider. I think it's in today's day and age, I think it's people who are buying homes like this are looking for plants that are native, and I think we strongly need to look at Stephen's threshold, which 70%, Stephen, was your threshold. I think it's almost, and I don't want to degrade the benefit of the native plants, but I also think it's a marketing opportunity. If you market a site saying you've incorporated native plants and you've thought about the environment, I think it's an appealing way to talk about the site. Okay, we did have one lady in blue. Where did you go? We were missing you for a little while. All right, come on, 13.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Rich Zimmer. I'm from 19 Halsey Place. Everybody came up, made a lot of good points, and they covered most of my points. So I want to respect what you asked, is to not just keep going over the same ones, but I just wanted to double down on some of them and maybe just make one other one, especially in regards to the wildlife, the displacement of the wildlife there. Even if you're not a big fan of the wildlife, and you don't really care what happens to them, if you live anywhere from Greenwood Avenue and straight down all along Westlake Drive, we're going to be swarmed by the displacement of that of the wildlife, because it is already happening now. We notice it when construction's going on. You're getting coyotes coming down, you're getting the foxes, you're getting a lot going on. But I did want to mention also, because the sidewalks, yes, is great, and it's great for the current children and the adults and everybody who like to walk up and down all up over there, and that is a wonderful thing. But the fact is, like from Greenwood all the way to Nannyhagen, you might only have about 200 homes. On Halsey is about more than a quarter of a mile long. There's 20 homes. We're going to be doing more. We're going to more than double the capacity. The vehicle traffic over there is going to be impossible. Everybody who lives in that area, the quality of life of them is going to be, it's going to be destroyed. People are going to be moving out of there. Home values will go down. It's going to be destroyed. I know there's going to be professionals that are going to come up and they're going to rebuke me and they're going to come up with all different things. But the fact is, the amount of traffic and the trending that goes on now, everybody orders from Amazon, everybody orders their food online. There's more and more vehicles coming in. And for what I understand, and I could be wrong on this, you need only one person in the home to be 55 and older, and the rest in the house does not, which is really not a 55 and older community. There's a lot of people nowadays, 55, got 14-year-old kids, 13-year-old kids, beside the fact that when people who do move in there, they'll be replaced in other homes with children. This is not necessarily a 55 and older community if only one person in the house has to be 55 and older.
We'll have the applicant address that.
But the final impact at the end is with the displaced animals. They're going to come down into the community. They're gonna be ravenous. Secondly, is the quality of life to live over there and to compete pulling out of Halsey with 400 or 500 cars that are coming out of there, it's going to be impossible.
No.
I moved from Amsterdam Avenue because to come out onto Bradhurst was impossible in the morning. So I moved over there to which was more like being in a country environment. That's out the window. That's destroyed. There's no way to get that back no matter what you do. Even if you reduce this, you'd have to reduce this down to such a small number that might be individual homes going in there. Other than that, anything like this is going to just destroy the quality of life of the people from Greenwood all the way to Nannyhagen who live in those first few blocks. We're good, honest, tax-paying people who are being told, you don't count, because even after going through the 3 years of the disruption, your quality of life is finished. You won't even want to live there no more.
Yep.
And that's all I got to say.
Thank you. So, and thank you. I know number 15, the lady in blue, and I know the lady in the back, you had a number. So folks, we're going to need to cut it off at some point. So let me just clarify. Okay. Yes. So come on up. For those folks, this is not the beginning and it's not the end. What's the beginning technically? Couple things. You can always submit comments to Carolyn over here. All of your comments get forwarded to this board. All of your comments get forwarded to the board through email form. We are going to most likely, I'm not the decision maker, most likely have another public hearing. We can have more conversation. The applicant is charged with replying to these comments. We're going to make sure that these get responded to. But at some point, we do have other applications here tonight as well, so to go through. So we want to make sure we give everybody appropriate time. So with that being said, number 15, your name and who you are for the record.
I'm Michelle. I live in Highland, in Tonwood. So first of all, sidewalk on Westlake is long overdue, I think. People walk there with the dogs and cars are driving on them basically every day. So the first issue I wanted to address is the town actually prepared to, with all this extra households in respect to purification of sewage, more clean water to supply, and all of the amenities that the town already provide, including garbage and stuff. And the major concern of public parking places, what I saw in the map over there, it's not enough parking as it is on site. So, and what about the parking next to the train stations and the post office and all the other public services? And the other thing that I wanted to ask was there is a lot of open spaces on the site that I can see. Is that going to be open to as a public parks for the residents of the neighborhood? Because as I see it, as I think a lot of people that live already in the neighborhood, we gain to lose a lot and not a lot to gain from this.
Thank you. Okay, I know we have others. Yeah, folks. Okay, I'm going to take the lady in white, and that's it tonight. Unfortunately, folks, I don't want to cut people off, but we have other applicants we need to go through. But, again, I want to hear from you, so if you can get an email to Carolyn, and please come back to the next public hearing. We'll get into that conversation a little bit.
Hi, I'm Melissa Billig. I live at 65 Richard Lane in Thornwood. I'm not going to repeat. I am aware. It occurs to me as I'm sitting here that we talked about this Baker project proposal that was renewed for about 14 years, I heard. I don't know if that's correct. 14. And it was just renewed right before this discussion, and it seems to affect this property. And I'm just curious why that was quickly renewed prior to this discussion, because it seems to me that if it expired, this project may have different opportunities presented. So I'm curious why that was done.
Okay.
There's a note that there is going to be $1.9 million going to the school. Which school?
Maybe. Well, I don't want. We'll have the applicant respond to that, but okay. I would assume Westlake.
Will this project involve excavation and like pile driving and excessive vibrations that are going to be felt throughout the neighborhood? Because that is a concern. And at what hours is that going to happen? Is that going to happen Monday through Friday, Saturdays? What's going on there? Was there a study done that demonstrates the actual need for this development? I mean, we've heard a lot about we're going to do this, but was that publicly available so that we can see that there's actually a need for what's being put in here? If that's available, I think it should be made available to the public. What is the effect on Kensico Reservoir and the water and everything around that based with this development? I think that is a question that should be answered. I would like to know if there is going to be green and sustainable materials being incorporated into this. We're supposed to be reducing our carbon footprint, but it appears that that may not be occurring. Are we going to have LEED certification or any kind of green requirements for the project? That's something that the town should really consider if this is something that's going to be approved. And one of the other members that is here today, in one of the sitting next to me, had mentioned that there is drainage issues at the senior center that was developed by the stores, and there is water going into the stores. So I know we've talked a lot about the water drainage, but I want to know that this has actually been really thoroughly looked at, and maybe there has to be a study done of new construction that has occurred and how that has impacted drainage.
Okay, thank you. All right, folks. And first, before I proceed, we heard 16 speakers, and I want to thank everybody who did come out. This application is a big application, and everybody showing interest tonight is definitely appreciated. So thank you for coming out. I'm going to ask the applicant just to come up and see if he has any final comments. No. I don't. They're leaving. I mean,
no one wants to stick around to hear me.
No.
Mr. Chairman, we'll just simply respond in writing.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
And I'll discuss with Pat whether we respond by speaker. We're thinking by topic area, so we'll work out the.
Folks, you came here for the meeting. And you're leaving just before the meeting's ended, and people here want to hear. So if you're leaving, please leave quietly. Thank you.
I'm going to say goodnight.
Thank you very much. All right. With that being said, I'm going to pause for 1 minute. We are
deal with the public hearing.
We're gonna deal with the public hearing. I'd like to see or entertain a motion for extending the public hearing.
I'll make a motion, we extend the public hearing.
Motion from Joan.
Second.
Second from Jane. Walter.
Aye.
Jane.
Yeah, aye.
Aye. Joan.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
JD. Aye. And aye from me. Okay, folks. Next up, we have up here on the application is continuing application Folks, I'm going to pause a minute, and we need to empty the room before we have the next applicant come up. We need to have some little bit of peace and quiet here.
It's time for a Kit Kat.
Okay, we're gonna wait until 9. We'll wait till like 2 minutes. Yes, you are. Yep. Yeah, start setting up. But just give us 2 minutes. Folks, I need you guys. I hate to say this, but I'll say this very nicely. I need you guys. If you're not here for this next application, I need you to move on. It's like final call. Yes.
While you're waiting, is that question? In the documents, is there sale price?
No, but it's a good question.
It's a good question. And they're not going to answer that question.
But the thing is, if they're anticipating it doesn't make sense.
Okay, when you come back, send a note to Carolyn.
Send the questions to Carolyn.
Send a note to
Well,
Carolyn.
I think townhomes don't pay the same tax
No, they
rate
don't.
as the single family. That's the problem. Yeah.
Yep. So I don't want to do too much individual. So we're not going to do too much individual stuff tonight because we can't, as a board.
Yeah.
As a board, we can't engage individual with public members. We have to be before the entire body of the public. So, yep. Yep. They're in the town hall and the library. You can call Carolyn, okay? Thank you.
They're online.
They're online too. You seem to want it. You want it, yeah. All right, so let's, folks, I'm going to ask people again, please make every effort to leave the room quietly. Every applicant is as important to me and this board as the previous ones. Each one has its own discussion. Each one is important to the people that are in the room. All right, so next up is a continuing application. So what does that mean? It's not a public hearing. It's a continuing application. Next up is Brighton Avenue, proposed Brighton Avenue and Bradhurst Avenue development of vacant parcels to construct a 3,000 square foot landscape and supply and equipment storage barn and 200 square foot detached office building with driveway, parking area, stormwater mitigation facilities, landscape screen areas.
The office is not attached, it's inside there.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm reading here. Okay, it's the office. Thank you, duly noted. Yeah, we'll make the updates. Thank you. Application site plan SP23. I just read. I don't actually understand what I'm reading. I think it's it. Application site plan SP23. I'm only joking, but we need jokes in the meeting, don't we?
We do. You
Applica-
must maintain your sense of humor.
Yes. Application site plan SP23-07, subdivision SD23-04, steep slopes SS 23-13. Location vacant parcel on Brighton and Bradhurst Avenue, Hawthorne. Section block lot number is 112.9-1-2 and 3. Zone CNR R10. Owner applicant is Brighton Avenue Properties LLC. Engineer architect KSCJ Consultant. And that's it. So thank you. Welcome, your name and all that for the record.
Sure. Thank you. Dave Sessions with KSCJ Consulting. We're the engineers, landscape architects for the project. Mark and Gina DeFabio are here, the owners of the property. We have not made any changes to the plans since the last time we were before your board. The last meeting, the board had several questions, as did the public, more questions about the traffic, the intersection, conversations with DOT, conversations with town staff regarding the intersection and so on and so forth. So what we did was we came back from the meeting, we compiled a list of what we felt were the board's and public's comments at that meeting and did annotated responses to those comments. We've also recently submitted, for the record, annotated responses to the public's petition I think there were 17 or 18 bullet points that they had listed concerns of theirs, so we've responded to those as well. Probably premature. I know the public hearing's not set yet, but maybe it's a more appropriate time to discuss it at that stage. But for the record, we wanted to set the record straight on a few issues that the public brought up, and we responded to those comments. So I can, we can do this however your board wants. I can go through my letter to your board. I'm assuming that you've read what we had put together. If you want to just if you have any questions about what we put together.
Yeah, and I think what we were looking for, which you did provide to the board, which was the question we had back to you, which you responded to, was what do you have from the DOT that said you had the ability to cut the curb and all that. So you provided a string of emails to the board, which is available to the public through Carolyn, but that is available to us. We do have that.
Yep.
So, and you may want to put that up on this, everybody, I'm sorry to ask you this, can you put that up a little higher, that so everyone can see it in the room?
The what?
I'm sorry, the board.
drawing.
The board.
Oh.
So I know those members of the public here for this tonight. I
Sure.
think they've probably seen it, but in case you want to look at it again, it's available to them. Okay,
Better?
Okay. So I don't think we need to go too much further, but that was the one thing that we wanted to dot the i's and cross the t's. I'm anxious to get this to the public hearing for one reason. I want the public to be able to provide input. And that does not mean we are in favor or in disfavor, but I need input from you, but we have to get to the formal process like we did just before, where we get the questions and ask him to provide the answers. We'll see what the other board thinks, but I want to pause there for 1 second. I want to get questions or comments from fellow board members. Any questions or comments from board members?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I think that you would run a very tight ship. I think you've responded to the public comments that we've heard so far. But I don't see how this is a neighborhood retail use. And when I went through the zoning code and your highlighted response of the sections, I just don't see how this is a neighborhood retail use, which is what the zoning is for. I think this would probably be less impactful than some of the permitted uses. And I'm only one board member, but I've been trying to figure out how this is a neighborhood retail use, and I don't see it.
Well, the office component of the facility is certainly a primary use and an accepted use on site. And all along, we always had the office component of the barn as part of the project. Prior, it was a separate building. We went to zoning. Zoning denied us for that separate building, so now we've put it in the building. So it's an office use which is accepted in this zone.
The primary use of this site, of this, operations of this, is not an office. Like the square footage of the office could go into any office building, and the point of this site is to have this more industrial operation. I know it's, moving the cars in and out, and I was going through trying to figure out what it fit into neatly into the zoning code. And I didn't find something that was neat. I found things that were maybe close, but what I definitely didn't see was neighborhood retail.
Well, neighborhood retail is it's a generic heading, and you saw the 25 or so different types of uses in neighborhood retail. I mean, a park doesn't exactly fit into neighborhood retail either, right? But there's the neighborhood retail allows every use in the R10 district, every use in the R40 district. So, it probably should have about 20 different headings for the actual site, because it's a very generic type zoning district, and it allows a lot of different, variety of businesses.
It does, and they're prescribed in the zoning code, but I just didn't see which one does this fall under?
I mean, it's office.
So who makes the determination? who makes the determination that this falls into that category?
So, Mr. Chairman, I can clarify that. The building inspector made that determination many months ago. So what we can do is ask for his clarification. It's not the applicant's interpretation, it's the building
Yes,
inspector's.
and that's where I was going. And I think, Eileen, but I think that's where you're going, right? I mean, I think we need to get that clarification.
Yeah. I'm glad Pat brought that up, because early on, even before we made formal applications to the board, we had met with Sal, the building inspector, we had met with Pat and with Dave Smith. And Pat's exactly right. The building inspector ultimately makes that decision. And the building inspector told us, you know, you need to have an office component here, which we were always going to do anyway. So the office component and I don't want to put words in Sal's mouth. He will respond, I'm sure, in writing. But as long as the office component is associated with this use, it satisfies the use in the zone. But obviously, he will clarify that.
And we can take it a step further. If we have different thoughts, Pat, on that determination, what do we do?
You can challenge the building inspector's interpretation to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members?
I have a question. Last time when we were here, we spoke about the possibility of exploring a bond. We wanted to make sure the use was going to be maintained, that there wasn't going to be any debris that was kept on the site and things of that nature. We had discussed that, Pat. Did we get a response on it?
So the bond is probably not the right vehicle to do this. If a year from now they're operating, what would we use their money for? There might be an alternative to this, which is in a year, there's a condition compliance assessment, which is done with the applicant and the building inspector to make sure they are complying with their conditions. If they are not, they return to the planning board to describe why they're not meeting those conditions, and there would be a way to address that. You can have a second public hearing if you wanted to with respect to that as well. But I don't think the bond is the right vehicle because there's nothing for us to do with their money.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments from board members?
Is this ready for a public hearing?
So the issues that you have raised have been addressed by the applicant. All the site engineering issues, if you are comfortable with the layout and configuration of the site as it sits today, the answer is yes.
So what I would like to understand when we go to the public hearing is if you didn't do the lot line adjustment, what would you do? Can you put this building in that site without a lot line adjustment? And can we see that? And do you have that? Because you know, if you wanted to put something onto that site that conformed to that site, you have a lot more power. But you're looking to do something that's a little bit different. You're looking to take some of the residential property, make it commercial property, and do the adjustment. And I know why you want to do it, because it makes the lot more usable for you. But what if you just left the lot the way it is? Can't you just leave the lot the way it is?
It was my understanding from last time that you're not actually having any of the commercial use in the residential section, that sliver that goes out, the leg that goes out.
That's correct. The building is completely within the commercial
Right. But my
site.
question last time was, but you can grade it, you own it, you can grade it without putting your commercial use there and not having to move that lot line.
Well, the setbacks, there's a rear yard setback.
That's what you said last time, and I forgot, obviously.
Yeah, the building is completely outside of the residential strip, but it has a rear yard setback that we need to adhere to. And that's the reason. I mean, the building wouldn't be, there's a front yard setback from the road, and there's a rear yard setback from the property line. The building would probably be so small that it would not be palatable.
But do we think the lot was designed that way intentionally from the beginning because of the constrictions and the constraints of the lot? I mean, that's a rhetorical question to you, but the lot was constrained when it was purchased, and the lot was constrained when it was divided the way it is divided today. So it has its limitations, so I'm failing to understand, like, it's very unusual for us to do this, taking property from a residential, which now makes a larger commercial lot, which now that commercial lot becomes more valuable to you, and now we're gonna be stuck with this issue, with this traffic issue that we've been, and in and out issue that we've been talking about.
But, okay, so let's just play this out for a minute. Let's say we didn't do the lot line change, and the building was moved and reduced in size. The traffic issue would not be an issue. The number of vehicles would be the same. We're talking about 6 vehicles. We're not talking about dozens and hundreds of vehicles. We're talking about 6. So if traffic is the main concern and the intersection is the main concern, nothing will measurably change. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. And again, we're talking about, and to your point, and it's a good point, you're talking about the different types of uses that can be done on this property. As I've mentioned several times, there is not a less intense use allowed in this code that can be put on this property. This is the least intense use from a traffic standpoint, from a vehicular standpoint, whether the lot line change happens or not. If traffic is the issue, it's irrelevant.
However, once you change the lot line, now you have a bigger commercial lot, which 20 years from now might be some kind of a different, more intense business, because now you have a bigger, more usable lot.
But it really can't. I've explained this many times. That little strip that we're planning on moving is a steeply sloped hillside. The entire hillside is steeply sloped. Even if they wanted to, whatever, make something up, store materials, first of all, there's no storage of materials on the site, but even if the concept of this bleeding into the residential project, it's not possible. This is an incredibly steeply sloped hillside here. So there's no activity. The commercial portion of this cannot expand into that 30-foot section. It's just physically impossible. It won't happen. And your board, and the public lives right here. I'm sure if something looks fishy one day and there's all of a sudden some piece of machinery on that hillside, we're going to hear about it, and you're going to hear about it. It's just not going to happen. So this is solely being taken advantage of, really, so that the building can be sited in a better way. It can be palatable for the owner. It's not as though the building is back into the residential piece. It's a hillside, and it will continue to be so.
That's currently zoned residential, the strip?
Yes.
Okay, so are we rezoning that? Isn't that a town board? I feel like I asked this question
No,
before.
because he's not using it for
But-
the commercial
So
purpose.
why don't we just continue to cap that as residential and not shift the zoning district line, but keep that as residential? And since the commercial operations are happening in the commercial portion, there's no need to rezone that strip. It can be part
It's
of your
not, well, it's
lot.
not being rezoned.
Oh,
There's no
that's why-
rezoning.
So there would be no commercial in there. Okay, so.
No, there's no rezoning. It stays a residential lot.
Well, hold on. So no, but you're making, at the end of the day, you're making the commercial lot bigger, correct?
Correct.
So you're.
He's making the lot bigger,
Right,
not the commercial.
A
The
lot that
commercial,
is 75% commercial and a little bit residential.
it'll be
large.
one lot in 2 zoning districts.
So there could never be a legal use on that residential portion for a commercial operation.
No, I understood, but at the end of the day, that portion of the property that's residential is now becoming commercial.
It's being associated with the commercial site.
Correct. So, I mean.
So what I will say that really hasn't been discussed is that that strip, presumably when the lot was created some time ago for whoever, why, what reason, who knows, someone considered access for the back portion out onto Bradhurst instead of Jackson.
For the residential lot.
When that's converted into the commercial property, you would only have access to that parcel, that back parcel from Jackson. So you would be eliminating that. Now, to Dave's point, I don't know that you could build a driveway down that strip because of the topography.
No.
But you would be foreclosing that opportunity. that exists today. Right now, that back residential lot could have 2 points of access. It would only have one in the future.
I mean, forgive me, Mark. You know, we can, I'm sure Mark and Gina would say to the board, no vehicular or access otherwise can happen between the two lots in the future. I mean, as far as a driveway is concerned, it's just not, even if we wanted to, it's physically not feasible.
Well, that I get. I'm just, you know, I'm just struggling with the lot line adjustment. And I'll just leave it at that.
It's making the development more palatable.
For the applicant.
For the applicant, the owner of the property. I mean, it's a better project as far as the space. This building is actually on the small side for what they need as far as storage and things and equipment in the barn itself. It's small. It's as narrow as it can be. We're right on the rear yard setback. We're right on the front yard setback. Moving it would put us into the front yard setback. And quite frankly, it would just be too narrow of a building.
But isn't that why that setback is there? And like it's again.
No, actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
but the way the zoning code reads is, in this zone, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no front yard setback unless, there's a very strange stipulation in the code, unless there's parking in the front yard. For some reason, if there's parking in the front yard, they require the building to be 50 feet off the road, not even off the property line, off the road. So if there wasn't parking in the front yard, you could put this building right up on the property line with no setback. I don't know if you knew the advent of that stipulation in the code, why it's there, but...
It's there because this district is typically the hamlet downtowns, where you want buildings up on the street, and if you have parking in front, you need to put the building back. This is an unusual, this is sort of an outlying parcel in many different ways.
Yeah, so it really is no front yard setback unless there's parking proposed in the front yard. Then they make you move the building.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members?
It's a question. Did your architectural design of this building change from when you first presented to what it is now? It was a pole barn, I think, when we first saw it. Is it now more like a steel shed type building?
It's the same building, right, Mark? The only difference is the interior now. We've got the office inside.
But it's still a pole barn?
Yeah.
Dave, you can pick it up. You got the rendering right next to it.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but, I mean, this is just one view. But there's cupolas on top. It's it's actually 28 feet 6 inches high. 35 feet is allowed in this. This is smaller than a house.
Yeah.
6.5, almost 7 feet shorter than a house in a residential district would be allowed. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So we did have a comment on clarification from the town staff building on that interpretation. So we should
Well, you have an interpretation. We're asking for a
clarification on that. Then the question becomes whether or not it's not whether or not we agree or disagree with the application, because I definitely have very strong thoughts still on that lot line adjustment. But the question is, from an administrative perspective, have we dotted the i's across the t's?
Yes.
And that's a question for the board to bring it to a public hearing.
Yeah.
Because I said in the onset, I'm anxious for the public because I know the public has a lot of good information, and we've seen a lot of good information, but I need that input to come to us so we can start to guide this application.
Well, I think we're ready for a public hearing, because there's nothing else to talk about right now, till we get public input. So I'll make a motion, we move to a public hearing.
So we have a motion from Joan.
Second.
Second from Jane. Walter.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Joan.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
JD.
Aye.
Not for me. So to the public that's here tonight, what does that mean? That means you guys are on. That means you're up next, which you have good information, and we've read it all. You guys, we'll figure out when that meeting's going to be, Carolyn. We'll definitely find out when that is. There will be a sign put on the property saying it's going to be posted, and they're going to have to be ready for those questions, and they're going to need to be, like earlier, respond to those questions that are coming to us. Is that understood? All right, thank you. And thank you again for coming out tonight and the other meetings. We don't do this without you guys, so thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
It wasn't terrible. Well, maybe it was. I don't know.
You turned it off?
Yes, there. Yeah, thank you.